Welcome back to the 9th video of our Esoteric series, an esoteric interpretation of the tarot cards. Today we will be uncovering the secrets behind the Hermit. Although this video will be shorter than most of my other videos in this series, it is my belief that this card is one of the most important of them all. This card, subtle in design, deceives the viewer as to its much deeper meaning. The Hermit is, in a way, the iceberg of the major arcana, and here is my evidence. First off, as we always do, let's look at the symbolism of this card at its base level. It features an aged man wearing a robe holding two peculiar items, a staff and a lantern. The background, like the Emperor card, is a barren wasteland, dark and gloomy with no end in sight. Inside the lantern is a shape, that of the six-pointed star or Mogan David. Now, most of the other cards we have covered have had clues that lead to a common theme, such as the Empress and fertility, or the Magician and the four elements. However, deciphering the Hermit requires the viewer to see the theme, and then the clues will make themselves visible. Look at the figure on the card. Now look at the background. It's gothic, doldrums, desolate. A grayscale of mystery only broken by its two items held by the Hermit. The staff and lantern glow with a golden radiance, contrasting its monotone surroundings. The Hermit holds these items but shows no delight in doing so. He's emotionless, trudging a path only illuminated by the contents of his own hands. He is weathered, worn, and tired of the path behind him, looking on begrudgingly to the road ahead. This is a man who is coming from a place of virtue, carrying the burden of duty. But what is his quest, and what is the meaning of the items he holds? The staff has long been a status symbol of leadership, beginning in ancient times with magicians and priests. He who wields it also wields great power. As a shepherd tends to their flock by the use of their hooks, so too does the king rule over their citizens with a golden scepter. This leads me to believe that the man in this card either comes from wealth and status, or has been charged by those in power to carry out their burdens. The second item is the lantern, which is seen held at arm's length, lighting the path ahead of the Hermit. The lantern is a symbol of light, both in the physical and metaphysical sense. The term light has been used throughout history as a placeholder for wisdom, knowledge, and truth, likening the sense of being engulfed by the sun's rays to the feeling of being filled with divine wisdom and growing spirituality. The flame of the lantern is in the shape of the Mogan David or six-pointed star, a symbol that we have discussed in a previous video in detail, but as for its purpose in this card, I have a theory. It's a bit of a reach, but hear me out and maybe you will agree too. In the field of Gnosticism, it is believed that there has been a certain underground group that has existed from time immemorial and in many forms. Families whose origins can be traced to some of the most legendary names in history. These families, known as Rex Deus or God Kings, were founded when the fallen ones fell to the earth and inhabited its lands. They were masters of the mind, bending the will of reality to fit their desires and using rituals and ceremony to pass down their secrets from generation to generation. Some examples of this include the first pharaohs of ancient Egypt, the Greek pantheon, the priests of the temple in Jerusalem, and the Essenes. Being a six-pointed star, it is my belief that the Hermit's lantern is representative of some kind of Judeo-Christian ancient knowledge, with the Hermit himself being the vessel from one era to another. But why is he alone? Why is the land behind him so dark and desolate? Well, putting all the clues together, we can answer those questions perfectly. If the Hermit is a vessel carrying knowledge from one era to another for some higher knowledge group, and that knowledge is rooted in Gnosticism, then it is my belief that the Hermit is a representation of the dark age of esoteric knowledge. In ancient Samaria, Egypt, and Judea, divine interaction was as commonplace as making dinner. Magic was quite real to members of ancient societies, where the connection between humans and God was as true as a child to a parent. Prayers and offerings were given daily as a means to attain that which the faithful asked for, a practice that Rhonda Burns wrote about in The Secret, but that most who read her book don't fully understand. This ancient and powerful knowledge that once graced the average household became taboo with the rise of structured religion, with early Catholic leadership banning the practices that preceded them. The Hermit is the embodiment of isolation, solitude, and hidden purpose, ever roaming the dark landscape until the light of the lantern can be shared with all. By the help of the staff, the Hermit walks the long road of purpose, always remembering his future destination and never forgetting the path behind. The Hermit is the essence of the underground esoteric community, who through persecution and passage of time continue to keep the flame of light alive until future generations can accept and understand that divine wisdom was imparted on us from the very beginning. And the time of truth is arriving sooner than later. Unfortunately, not all of the ancient practices have been retained since its dive into obscurity, but with the remnants held faithfully through millennia by hermits of every age, all will be revealed in the days to come. One last side note before I end the video. If you research the zodiac meaning behind this card, it is represented by the sign Virgo, and therefore the planet Mercury. Mercury, or in the Greek pantheon Hermes, was the messenger god and god of healing and wisdom, who was also represented in the Egyptian pantheon as Thoth. Thoth and Hermes, when put together in esoteric tradition, makes the amalgamation god known as Hermes Trismegistus, or Hermes Thrice Great, founder of Hermeticism and one of the most influential figures in esoteric study. It is believed that Hermes Trismegistus was the carrier of a great divine knowledge that existed after Hermes and Thoth, but before the Common Era, making him the Hermit who passed on this knowledge from one era to the next. He is responsible for the creation of the Lost Emerald Tablet, on which supposedly was written all of the divine secrets of the universe. I'd like to thank you for joining us on another edition of the Eleusinian Society, and thank you so much for supporting me throughout the past couple months while I went on sabbatical. I'm glad to be back, and I'm excited to be making more videos. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
If the mind could be released from the terrific pressure of self-interest, if it could get away from all its scheming on how to defeat a brother, and rather simply, quietly work out how to help him, all things would be much better in the mental world. There would be much less mental breakdown, and we would not be suffering from too many cases of senility. It is the misuse of the mind